coming on the air with a huge week on Wall Street and a ton of questions about how long this is going to last, with analysts wondering tonight, are we in our NVIDIA era? That company having what some call a Taylor Swift moment, what it means for your retirement account and whether it's a bigger signal for the economy. We're also getting some new updates from police about the nursing student found dead on the campus of the University of Georgia. What we're just learning about the person of interest here. And then the new sanctions from the White House against Vladimir Putin as we mark 2 years since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Our Richard Engel has new details you will only see here tonight on the nuclear power plant seized by Russia that experts call a ticking time bomb. Plus, the fit fiasco in baseball, the uniform controversy that just won't quit, why players' new pants are getting compared to wet T-shirts in a story we are trying to keep rated PG. And a behind-the-scenes look at an NBC News exclusive in tonight's backstory, how a random tip that kind of looked like spam helped our reporter uncover who's behind an AI political scandal. It's not magic, it's journalism. But in this case, it is also magic. We'll explain later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with a boom moment for the markets, setting new records, capping off a winning week in what has been so far a monster year for Wall Street and probably your retirement account. Take a look. These big numbers driving a day we've never seen before for the Dow Jones. The S&P hit a record earlier in the day, a lot of it driven by one company, NVIDIA. Have you heard of this one? Goldman Sachs says right now it's the most important stock on the planet. Others say it's having this like Taylor Swift moment. So what's the deal? Why? What's it all about? You may know them if you're big into video games. NVIDIA makes computer chips, specifically chips that make you be able to watch this show on a computer or smart TV or mobile phone or whatever. That puts them at the center of the so-called AI revolution. And that is why investors are so excited, to the point that NVIDIA at one point touched $2 trillion in value. We're at the point where just these 7 companies, the big tech companies you know, the companies you use, Microsoft, Meta, Tesla, Alphabet, et cetera, they're making up nearly a third of that S&P record high. And that puts us into territory we haven't seen since Coolio had the #1 song in the country. And the first Toy Story was still in theaters. 1995, back when the internet was booming, tech stocks were driving everything, markets, jobs, you name it. Is that the moment we're in? And more importantly, is it here to stay? Because just 4 years later, remember, in 99, a lot of those tech stocks collapsed from the dot-com bubble. Christine Romans is joining us now, so let me put that to you. Yeah. Is this a 95 moment? Is this a party like it's 99? Where are we?
I got to tell you, well, the amazing Dan Ives, who sort of made that construct, he is a Wall Street analyst who says this is 95 all the way. Imagine 95. That's when Steve Jobs was saying there's going to be a computer on every desk, and the world said, are you crazy? That's not going to happen. And it did, and it really inspired more than a decade, actually a couple decades of major technology growth. Here's what Dan Ives says of Wedbush. You can see his comment there. He says, this is a 1995 moment. If you put that back up, I can read for you. We are confident now the AI revolution and $1 trillion of incremental spending over the next decade is hitting the software ecosystem and the rest of the tech sector. One thing about NVIDIA, I got to tell you, there are really high expectations for this company, and it reported earnings this week that were better, tripled its revenue. I mean, it just keeps performing and is really a big driver here of a lot of this AI enthusiasm. One analyst described it this way: this moment, it's the steam engine. I mean, that's the kind of technology we're talking about here. That changed every industry and changed living standards around the world.
So I think that's super interesting, the analogy that you're using, Christine, the idea of a steam engine, because I think some people might hear you talk and hear the way that you're talking about this and think, is it a bubble? Yeah. Right? It's less about that, and it seems to be more foundationally changing the way that things could work down the road. I mean, listen, kind of like the internet.
Yeah, and at some point, it's got to spread out from just a few companies, right? I mean, at some point, other companies, even more plain vanilla, not on the surface tech companies, will start to begin to use AI in a way that will change how their business goes. And so what Dan Ives and others are saying is, and the market, frankly, is saying, is that you're just at the beginning of that moment. But a lot of people say it does feel so bubbly. The S&P 500 is up 28% over the past year. That's likely what your stocks in your 401k probably look more like the S&P 500, but a big chunk of that, you're right, is these 7 tech stocks or this tech sector. So will it all broaden out from there? And then you've got even more gains. Look at NVIDIA stock. Isn't that amazing? Yesterday, what it added in market value just yesterday on its big rally day was more than the size, I think, of 90% of the S&P 500 companies. Just NVIDIA in one day. I've never seen something like that.
But so what does it mean? We say this a lot, and I know that the market is not the economy, right? The markets are not the economic picture. Bring it back home to people who are like, hey, I'm not watching CNBC, right? Like, how should people who have a 401k, don't have a 401k, how should they be thinking about this moment right now as it relates to sort of the bread and butter for all of us, going out to the grocery store, trying to pay our rent, our mortgage, whatever?
A couple of interesting points on that. You know, you probably have more in your 401k today, for sure, than you did last year or the year before, right? And especially for baby boomers, you know, we're heading this year, I think 4.1 million people will turn 65 this year, and they've got many of them have a nice little nest egg. So that allows them things like, maybe deciding this year to move out of their house and move into a smaller house, and they don't worry so much about mortgage rates. There are a lot of different ways this stock market euphoria at the moment can spill into the rest of the economy. But you're absolutely right. The sentiment indicators are not yet reflecting all of this. And about a half of American households don't own stocks at all, right? So it is, I guess, it's an interesting place to be, where on the one hand, people still know their grocery bill is 25% higher than last year, and car insurance is record highs, but the stock market is doing quite well, and people are real excited about AI.
Christine Romans, thank you for breaking it down for us and helping us understand this really remarkable moment. Appreciate it. Taking it down to Georgia now, where we're learning tonight that University of Georgia police are now questioning a person of interest in what has become a homicide investigation. A nursing student found dead on the school's campus. They're stressing there are still so many questions here. The victim, 22-year-old Laken Riley. You see her here. She was a student at UGA through last spring, then transferred to nearby Augusta University's College of Nursing. She was a junior on the dean's list. The timeline of what we know, that yesterday, a couple of minutes after noon, her friend called UGA police. She was worried because she hadn't gotten back from a run near some school fields. Around 12:20, officers responded to the area and say they found her body a few minutes later in the woods behind a lake nearby, declared dead at the scene with what they describe as visible injuries. Guad Venegas is following this one for us. So police now have this person of interest. What else do we know?
Hallie, we know that the officers went out yesterday, and within minutes, they were able to find that body in an area where the intramural fields are located on the campus of the University of Georgia. This is south of the main area of the campus, the area that is much more dense with students, but which is also nearby the College of Nursing, where she had transferred to after being a student at the University of Georgia. Now, during a press conference yesterday, authorities said they had the local campus police working with state authorities, and they were reviewing security video cameras to see what kind of clues they could find. Then later today, they did inform that they were speaking to a person of interest. Now, in the last few minutes, we've also learned that the University of Georgia is now holding another press conference tonight at 7 p.m. local time with an update on this investigation. Hallie?
This is the second death on campus in just 2 days, essentially. We know that on Wednesday night, a UGA student died suddenly. Police say they're not connected, but I wonder how the campus is feeling. I have to imagine the community is just so rattled.
Shocked, rattled and shocked, Hallie. So students are taking the day off at both campuses at the University of Georgia and the small College of Nursing campus. And authorities were hoping that this investigation could move forward while students were taking the day off. Now, many of them are saying they are scared to go outside. We also know that the university is asking students to download what they call the SAFE app. This is an app that shares their location with authorities if they're in some type of emergency and they need to contact the police. They also ask students to walk in pairs or in groups if they were moving around the area. And, you know, even with all of that, students were scared. Now, authorities did say that they did not believe that there was any imminent danger. But the hope is that with this presser expected to be held tonight at the University of Georgia, there will be more information as to where the investigation is going and what it means that authorities did have a person of interest that they were speaking to just hours ago, Hallie.
Guad Venegas, thank you so much for that update. We'll talk again as we know more later tonight. Thank you. Also tonight, pushback from nearly all sides on that controversial Alabama court ruling saying embryos are people. A ruling that is now throwing the future of IVF in that state into question, with lawmakers in Alabama and the White House now scrambling to contain the fallout, try to limit the damage. That includes tonight members of both parties in Alabama moving fast to try to protect IVF by passing new state laws after multiple healthcare facilities there stopped in vitro fertilization procedures because of that ruling. Those lawmakers are doing just what former President Trump wants them to do. Right as we were coming on the air, he was speaking at a rally. Let me play for you what he said.
Today, I'm calling on the Alabama legislature to act quickly to find an immediate solution to preserve the availability of IVF in Alabama, and I'm sure they're going to do that.
They are looking into it, all of it, as there is a political overlay here. You have the Republican Senate campaign arm sending out essentially talking points to Republican candidates, encouraging them to publicly show support for IVF, which is broadly backed across political lines. And in Washington, some new NBC News reporting tonight on high-level talks about next steps from the Biden administration, according to multiple administration officials familiar with the matter. Yamiche Alcindor is in Birmingham. She is joining us now. So you are on the ground there, Yamiche, in Alabama, where you've got lawmakers now scrambling on the state level. You have the White House trying to take some action potentially on the federal level. Let me play for folks what Republican State Senator Tim Milson had to say on this.
We have advanced so far in medicine that we're storing everything from embryos to sperm to eggs for future use, and we hadn't really thought about the consequences of that. And it's time, and it's to figure that out.
Okay, well, they're figuring out, even as some patients are now in kind of a purgatory here. They can't get the IVF procedures they want to get. They're having trouble figuring out where they can transfer their embryos to, if it's to other states or what. Talk us through it.
Well, Hallie, the fear, anger, and frankly, the shock is palpable here in Alabama while patients are trying to figure out what to do, as at least 3 clinics have already paused giving IVF treatments. Now, I talked to a number of women who are going to be impacted by this, and they all say that they're very, very worried about whether or not they'll be able to grow their families. I talked to a woman in particular, Kelly Belmont. She said her lifelong dream is to become a mother. Take a listen to what she said about her situation now.
There's really no way to describe the fear that at some point a phone call could come and my doctor could say, hey, we're pulling the plug on the program and we're not going to be able to continue until further notice.
Now, for right now, Kelly and her husband, James, are able to go through with what is going to be their second round of IVF. And there is, as the day has gone on, this feeling that there might be hope for families who want to pursue IVF in the state, because we have seen, of course, as you said, former President Trump coming out and urging lawmakers in the state to support IVF. We've also seen a move in the state legislature by Democrats and Republicans to introduce bills to protect IVF. And just recently, the Alabama State Attorney General came out and said, I want to read for you, part of his office said he has no intention of using the recent Alabama Supreme Court decision as a basis for prosecuting IVF families or providers. So that tells you that really the Alabama Attorney General is also saying, hey, we want to not go after people on this issue of IVF, Hallie.
Bigger concern for some of these healthcare facilities is less the potential of criminal prosecution, as the state AG is making clear, more about the civil liability issue of it all. Could they get sued for a ton of money? They don't want to see that happen. They're concerned about that piece of the risk.
That's completely right. You have a number of clinics who are very, very concerned about that. I also want to say that, as we talked about the president coming out, you have the White House coming out and saying that this is the sort of chaos that you see that they expected after overturning Roe v. Wade. I also want to read part of what the Chief Supreme Court Justice here said, Tom Parker. I know you're going to, at some point, we should talk about the sort of implications here. And he wrote in part, human life cannot be destroyed without incurring the wrath of holy God. Even before birth, all human beings bear the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing it. And that's really getting a lot of backlash here, because I talked to a number of women in Alabama, a state that's very conservative here, saying their faith tells them that they should love their neighbors and not judge people, and that they should be able to grow their families. So there's really a lot of contention here, not only on, of course, what's going on around the country, but also specifically here as people are talking about faith here. Hallie? You mentioned the controversy surrounding the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. Obviously, he didn't. The ruling was 8-1. He didn't tip the outcome. He didn't tip the scales, if you will, on the outcome. But there's a lot of attention on him, somebody who was considered even years ago, right, well before this particular ruling, somebody who was seen as an architect of the movement that ultimately ended up toppling Roe versus Wade in the Supreme Court. That's right. And we have, of course, new reporting on NBCNews.com that the same day that he was issuing his concurring opinion where he quoted the Bible talking about the wrath of God, he also was saying in an interview that he believes that society, America, should be reshaped in the image of the beliefs of conservative Christians. So there's really a lot of worry that this state Supreme Court Chief Justice was really unfairly including his faith beliefs in a decision that now is having so much impact here in the state impacting thousands and thousands of patients. But that being said, as I said, that things here seem to be moving in the direction of people being able to, at some point possibly, to access IVF treatments. Hallie?
Yamiche, thank you so much. Live for us there in Birmingham, Alabama. Thanks, Yamiche. A little further north, we are just 14 hours away from voters heading to the polls in South Carolina, where they're expected to send a message to Nikki Haley in her home state that she can't stop former President Trump's march to the Republican nomination. You've got both of these candidates working up and down the state today, even though virtually every South Carolina primary poll has Mr. Trump crushing Haley by as many as 35 points. Now, if that or even anything close to that happens, it would make history. It'd be the worst loss for a primary candidate in their home state in recent memory if Haley ends up losing by more than the 19 points Marco Rubio lost to Donald Trump in his home state of Florida back, you're looking at 2016. Those are the 2016 numbers. Now, Haley and her campaign have said for weeks that South Carolina, win or lose, whatever happens, it is not going to be the end of the road for them. They are looking ahead to Super Tuesday on March 5th and maybe even beyond. NBC's Allie Vitale is in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, where Haley is set to speak in just the next hour to a crowd near where you are, Allie, in this closing argument now to voters in her own home state. And it seems like if there is any suspense for tomorrow night, it is going to be what the margin is here, unless there is some sort of massive earthquake of a shocker for Nikki Haley tomorrow night.
Exactly right, Hallie. The question is not going to be win or lose. The question is going to be by how much. Now, you look at a place like this, I just have to bring you into where I am because I think you have done events here as well. This is right here, right in front of one of the major ships that is often docked here in one of the ports of Charleston. It's Patriot Point here where we are. And this is what it looks like if you want to do a primary eve rally done right. The Haley team, of course, finishing their swing throughout the state with a rally here this evening, but they know, and they can attest to this, that the odds are against them here, so much so that when I was on a call with the campaign manager for Nikki Haley's campaign, Betsy Ankeny, early today, I asked her, okay, you're staying in through Super Tuesday, but what happens after that? What does it have to look like, and what do you have to see to figure out if you feel enough voters have voted and it's time to get out, or there's reason to stay in? Instead, she completely dodged the question, and I'll put up on the screen for you, Hallie, what she said to me instead. She said, we have rolled out our leadership teams in most of the states through the end of March, including Georgia and Washington State. That's true. But she also went on to say, we know the odds, we know the stakes. Nikki Haley is the only one who can be successful in November, and that's what we're focused on. I imagine, Hallie, when we see the candidate here in just the next hour, that is going to be her message, one that is steeped in an electability argument for the general election. But as you and I well know, you can't get to the general without getting through a primary, and there is a real big Trump wall here in South Carolina.
You can talk about the general all you want in November. You have to get through February in South Carolina and March in the Super Tuesday states and elsewhere as well. You know, one of the things, and this just dovetails a little bit, I don't know if you listened to my conversation with Yamiche just a moment ago, with this issue that you well know because you made big news on it earlier this week with Nikki Haley on that controversial Alabama Supreme Court ruling that throws into question now the future of in vitro fertilization there and maybe in other states as well. This is something that is being talked about a lot at CPAC, that annual gathering of conservatives, as you well know. Let me play for you how some folks there are talking about this issue.
It just reaffirms the sanctity of life all throughout the process, from, you know, conception to actual births.
Life, personally to me, is when it's conceived, you know. I think the power of that intention, you know, should be respected.
How do you see this issue playing out? Maybe not in South Carolina. It feels like, again, more of a general election issue, but in the months to come, Al.
Yeah. Look, this is a major general election issue because I think the more that Republicans are forced to talk about anything tangentially related to reproductive health care, the more it becomes a losing issue for them, because a lot of these are issues where Republican platforms and Republican policy are largely out of step with where a general election audience would be. And the thing I keep hearkening back to is last summer being in Ohio on a random Tuesday in August for a special election that did not have the word abortion, did not have the word reproduction in the ballot question, but was all about what could happen on abortion access in that state. We always think of Ohio as a state that's gone red and isn't coming back, but millions of people, 3 million, I believe, turned out on that random Tuesday in August. And I'm not going to forget that as we keep looking at these different plot points of how Republicans are talking about reproductive health care. Nikki Haley is just the latest to set off this string of politicians being asked what they would do on this issue. I think that that's where voters are really attracted and motivated. They want to see where people stand because this is a pivotal moment for this country on those issues.
Hallie Vitale, thank you so much. We are going to have more on the South Carolina delegate math, perhaps not mathing for Nikki Haley, a little bit later on in the show. And then, of course, tomorrow night, Allie and the rest of our team will be joining us for special coverage of the South Carolina primary. I will see you live from New York right here, however you're watching on NBC News Now, starting at 6 o'clock Eastern. Do not miss it. We got an all-star team of folks fanning out to cover all of it. To the White House now, where President Biden is all but begging governors to push Republicans in Congress to get behind more money for Ukraine as he's rolling out a new round of sanctions in response to the killing of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
And that's what Putin is betting on. He's betting on we're going to walk away. America stands up for freedom. We never bow to anyone, particularly Putin.
This round of 500-plus sanctions hits at a bunch of different groups in Russia, like the people responsible for putting Navalny in prison, like Russian banks, the country's defense industry, groups in third-party countries like China, Turkey, Iran that help Russia, and people who are trying to evade the sanctions that are already in place. Ali Rafa is live for us at the White House. Help us sort through some of these sanctions that are clearly designed to send a message versus the ones the White House thinks are actually going to dent what President Biden calls Vladimir Putin's war machine.
Yeah, Hallie, well, because Russia has been able to work around the thousands of sanctions that the U.S. has imposed on the country since its invasion of Ukraine, there was a lot of concern over whether these new sanctions would be all bark and no bite. But it appears from what we've seen of these sanctions, the Biden administration is learning based on what Russia has shown, and they are clearly presenting safeguards to be able to prevent those evasive tactics from being practiced again. They're casting a very wide net here. You listed a couple of those targets. These are people and companies inside and outside of Russia that have bolstered Russia's energy industry, its manufacturing, its industrial industry that helps feed, as you mentioned, that war machine by President Putin. And in just the last hour or so, we heard from the Treasury Department announcing a new round of sanctions targeting Russia's oil revenues. As we know that Russia has continued to sell oil since it invaded Ukraine. These new sanctions target Russia's largest state-owned shipping company and 14 oil tankers that company owns. So officials say that they expect to see some substantive, concrete results from this, but not in the short term. This is much more in an effort to, in the long term, squeeze Russia of these resources. And then, of course, you have those sanctions that are sent more as a message, like you mentioned, those sanctions on those people involved in the death of Alexei Navalny. Hallie.
Ali Rafa live for us there outside the White House. Ali, thank you. We're just getting in some new numbers tonight showing measles going up all across the country. 35 cases now, according to the CDC. And it's Florida with the most. That state just confirming its 7th case, a kiddo under the age of 5. You see all 15 states dealing with this latest measles outbreak. And where you live may have a lot to do with how at risk you are for catching measles, depending on your state's policies around quarantining, how many people around you are vaccinated, and whether or not your state has more vaccine exemptions. Erica Edwards is following this for us. You've done a lot of reporting on this. You've got a big story dropping on NBCnews.com tomorrow. Give us a comparison of how different states are dealing with these outbreaks and what is really happening down in Florida.
Yeah, you know, measles control, infection control 101 is pretty standard. Identify the cases, isolate those patients for at least 21 days, 3 weeks, and offer education and vaccinations. Now, that's what most states do pretty successfully overall. And the key, they say, is clear, direct guidance for parents. Now, Florida is handling things a little differently. The state's Surgeon General has told parents it's completely up to them over whether they want to send their unvaccinated children back to school. But dozens of kids at Manatee Bay Elementary, where this outbreak began, are vulnerable. 33 out of the more than 1,000 students at the school are unvaccinated, and Florida's Surgeon General is also not openly encouraging those students to get vaccinated. The shots have been proven very safe and highly effective. Hallie?
What is the CDC saying about what states should be doing to try to contain this outbreak, even as the numbers are going up?
You know, the biggest thing is to encourage measles vaccinations. We need to have 95% coverage to keep outbreaks like this at bay. Right now, nationally, we're only at 93%, and vaccine exemptions are up in a majority of states. Now, Hallie, get this, the measles vaccine works so well, it can even be used to help unvaccinated kids after they've been exposed to the virus. If an unvaccinated child gets just one dose of the vaccine, after an exposure, their quarantine goes from 21 days to just 72 hours. That's how effective it is. Hallie?
Erica Edwards, thank you so much for that. We're looking forward to seeing more of your reporting on NBCnews.com. Appreciate it. Still ahead, some dramatic new video just into us of the fiery aftermath of a huge house explosion in Michigan. Look at that, what police say caused it. You see it on the right of your screen. Then boats rushing to rescue passengers after this seaplane's hard landing. The details ahead. A gigantic discovery in the Amazon rainforest, both literally and figuratively. That's in the 5 things. But first, tonight, a new look at some pretty scary body cam video of a house explosion in Michigan with terrified neighbors running, screaming toward police officers, warning somebody may be trapped inside. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Like something out of a disaster movie. Body camera video just released by Ann Arbor police gives a first-hand look at Monday morning's jaw-dropping home explosion that rocked this quiet Michigan neighborhood.
What did you think when you saw how big this was?
Definitely was a surprise for me. I was really shocked.
Oh my God, there's been an explosion across the street.
Beginning with 911 calls and dash cam video as police race toward the scene, the nearly 2-minute clip shows a neighbor, blurred by police, running toward Officer Zach Cunningham.
Is anybody there do you know of?
Somebody was in there and it looked like...
The other officer very quickly found the man who they thought was inside. It turns out, thankfully, he wasn't. He was outside the home.
Correct. I think Officer Betts was able to locate him within the first 30 to 60 seconds of us being on scene.
Everybody back up!
Officers scramble to clear the area. Moments later, the home completely caves in.
There's a chimney that's a brick chimney. The brick actually makes it all the way across the street into the neighbor's yard.
Oh, it scared the living daylights out of me.
Our affiliate WDIV was there in the aftermath of Monday's fire as neighbors and the city's fire chief pieced together what happened.
We do have reports that propane was possibly being used inside of the house for heating.
Investigators later confirming propane tanks caused the explosion, adding no other homes were damaged, and the man who lived there in his 70s was injured but survived. He and his neighbors now left with a terrifying story to tell, caught on camera.
Terrifying, to say the least, Maggie. Joining us now from Chicago. Yeah. We mentioned neighbors originally thought somebody may have been trapped inside. That was not the case?
That was not the case. So that's the homeowner who they thought was still inside. They just hadn't seen him. So first responders, knowing that, went looking for him, thankfully found him in the driveway. And I talked to a family rep who said he was injured, but he survived. He's recovering. He's already actually out of the hospital, which is obviously a really good sign. But they said basically he got out of the house because there was a fire that it started initially. They don't know how that fire started just yet. But when it reached the propane tanks, that's what caused the explosion. The force of the explosion, I was told, blew him backwards, and that basically is what caused his injuries. The first responders found him right away, Hallie, and got him the help he needed, thankfully, because that video, as you saw, is so intense.
Completely. Maggie Vespa, thank you for bringing us that one. Appreciate it. Got to get to some breaking news now in from our Pentagon team, because the military is apparently monitoring an unidentified balloon flying over the USA out west, according to 2 U.S. officials and a defense official. We're learning tonight that NORAD has sent up an aircraft to check it out after this balloon was seen over Utah today. They say it doesn't appear to be a national security threat, but I want to bring in Courtney Cuby, who is joining us now. So, Court, whenever anybody thinks of a balloon flying over the U.S., people think of that China balloon that you so notably reported on last year. What do we know? What do we not know?
Yeah, and Hallie, this is almost exactly a year after that China balloon flew over the United States. It was late January, early February when that one happened. Now, this seems to be a pretty different situation than that one last year.
And let me be clear. That's what we're showing here, right? This is not. Yes. I want to just be clear with our viewers. This is not the balloon. This is not the Today balloon.
Yeah, and if you look at the balloon that we were just showing there, though, again, that was the China spy balloon that we've reported on extensively over the course of the last year.
What we're learning about the one today is, frankly, it's an unidentified balloon. The U.S. officials do not know who it belongs to or its point of origin. But as you mentioned, NORAD scrambled some fighter jets earlier today after it was spotted over Utah. It was flying about 43,000 to 45,000 feet. So they sent those jets up there to check it out and see if it was potentially a threat. Now, they determined, or they've assessed, it is not a national security threat. It's not maneuverable, so it doesn't have a rudder like the China spy balloon that we've all been talking about. And it does not pose a threat to civilian or military aviation, according to these officials. But the U.S. is still going to keep monitoring it. So the big question continues to be, who owns this balloon? What's it doing up there? You'll remember after the China spy balloon, the FAA imposed some rules saying, hey, if you're going to put these balloons up there for weather or whatever, or experimentation, you got to register them and let us know. It seems that this one was not registered.
Is it fair to say, Court, or maybe we don't know this yet, that because it is not a national security threat, or it does not appear to be one at this point, the U.S. isn't going to go and take steps to try to shoot it down? Like, in other words, they're going to just kind of watch it and see what happens?
Unless it's deemed a national security threat or, again, a threat to civilian aviation, remember. Sure. But I think the reason that we can't say for sure what they're going to do is, you'll remember after the U.S. shot down the spy balloon, they shot down a number of other unidentified balloons in the next week or 10 days afterwards. So it's not unprecedented for the U.S. to shoot down a balloon just because they don't know what it is. At this point, officials are not talking about that. But the fact that they're continuing to monitor it and try to figure out exactly what it is may be indicative that they're keeping every option on the table. I will say, unlike the China spy balloon, which, again, you're seeing here on the screen, this one has a very small payload. So it's sort of a small box about 2 feet in diameter, according to the officials who we spoke with.
Courtney Kube, great reporting. I know you're going to be watching this one for us tonight. Thank you very much for bringing it to us. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, police in Oklahoma said they're investigating the death of an LGBTQ teenager who died a day after they were allegedly assaulted in a school bathroom. We told you about this story earlier in the week. Still no cause of death, but prelim information suggests it's not related to trauma. The teen's mother told a local news outlet they had been bullied over gender identity. Officials are expected to release video of what happened in the bathroom at some point, but no details on when. Number 2, 3 members of the University of Wyoming's swimming and diving team have been killed in a car crash. You see them here. The school says the early investigation shows the driver swerved and the car went off the road near the Wyoming-Colorado state line. It rolled several times. 2 other team members were hurt in the crash, but they are expected to recover. Number 3, 7 people rescued after a plane landed on its side in Biscayne Bay near the port of Miami. You see the plane here. It's partially underwater. Obviously, it's not supposed to land like that. It's supposed to land right side up. Fortunately, nobody was hurt here. The plane had taken off from Palm Beach International about 30 minutes before that hard landing. Number 4, Vice Media plans to cut hundreds of employees and stop publishing on its website. For news, at least. The CEO of Vice announcing the changes in a memo saying it is no longer cost-effective to distribute digital content like that. Remember, Vice filed for bankruptcy last year before being sold to an investment group. Number 5, scientists in the Amazon rainforest have discovered a new species of anaconda, of green anaconda snakes. They're known to be the longest and the heaviest snakes on the planet. There's about a 5% genetic difference between the species. You know how they found out about this? While filming for Nat Geo's upcoming series with Will Smith. National Geographic, man, they're always ahead of the curve. Got a lot more to get to still to come, including Major League Baseball's uniform mess getting perhaps a little too revealing, the new pushback from the players. Plus, a dream day more than 3 decades in the making. You gotta love this story. The promise Universal Studios is making good on later in the local. Back to the South Carolina primary here with voters set to get out there first thing in the morning. And you probably already know, if you've been watching this show, that Nikki Haley's trailing behind Donald Trump in polling. But you may not know why. Republican primary rules may be making it harder for Haley to catch up when it comes to delegates. That's tonight's breakdown.
I'm in this for the long haul.
Nikki Haley pledging she will stay in this race for the GOP nomination. And the winner, when all is said and done, will need 1,215 delegates. More than 2,000 delegates are still up for grabs. But the Republican rules of the road may make it super hard for Haley to gain much ground delegate-wise. Why? More than a quarter of states and territories changed their rules over the last few years.
What you're left with is a set of rules, a patchwork of rules across the states that are immensely
front runner friendly, as I called them.
The rules in South Carolina mean that even if she wins 20, 30, even 40% of the vote there, she may not get a single delegate. And that's the case, this winner-take-all approach, in dozens of states on the GOP primary calendar. 13 of the states left will give all their delegates to whichever candidate gets the most votes, without requiring that person to break some kind of threshold. A bunch more states will do the same for any candidate who wins a majority of the vote. Compare that to how the Democrats handle things, awarding delegates proportionately, where anyone with 15% or more of the vote gets at least some number of delegates, which the party says keeps things competitive. Haley's campaign already looking ahead to Super Tuesday, March 5th. That's when 15 states will award more than a third of all GOP delegates.
I have every intention of going to Super Tuesday.
But the math may not be mathing for Haley. Almost a third of the nearly 900 delegates awarded Super Tuesday come from states where the majority winner goes home with all the delegates. And Mr. Trump, at the moment, is favored to take most of them. For Haley, the path to the nomination would require a seismic shift in GOP support, one we haven't seen so far in this race, as Donald Trump, undefeated in the primary for now, marches on. Whatever happens tomorrow, you know we'll be all over it. You can catch our South Carolina primary coverage starting at 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. I will be there, anchoring it all with our teams all across the state. Don't miss it, however you're watching now. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it's tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, a 24-hour string of violence across New York City, with police now looking for the 3 people you see on screen in connection with a deadly shooting this morning inside a subway car in the Bronx. We're told the shots were fired after some kind of an argument. That's after a teenager was stabbed and attacked in Times Square last night. 7 people have been arrested, but police are still looking for more than a dozen other suspects. Out of our Midwest Bureau, tense moments at a North Dakota scrapyard. An employee was going through a pile of metal when he stumbled upon, that's a grenade. Shop calls in the bomb squad. They x-rayed this thing, found it was filled with enough live ammunition to set off basically an explosion like 30 feet in diameter. Police were able to take the grenade to a landfill where they then detonated it. And out of our Western Bureau, one family cashed in a voucher for Universal Studios more than 3 decades after they got it. Back in 1990, the Kramers had their visit canceled. It was a literal rain check. They were rained out. It was too much rain to visit the park. So an employee gave them this, like an actual little handwritten rain check, good to use for the rest of their lives. Okay, so they did it. They went back. When they called about using it, Universal said they'd honor it. They just went, visited the park, no rain this time. Good for them. A new controversy now over those Major League Baseball uniforms going so viral for all the wrong reasons. But this time, it's not a question of style. It's a question of taste, maybe even decency. Why? The pants. Do you notice anything about Cal Raleigh's pants here? They're kind of see-through. And that's not a one-off, folks. A whole bunch of players have had this problem. We are only showing you here the pictures that are suitable for our family audience. You're going to have to Google the R-rated ones on your own. And fans have noticed. One top reporter calling these see-through pants embarrassing. Others saying they messed them up so badly, comparing it to a wet T-shirt contest. Then there's MLB Hall of Famer and former underwear model Jim Palmer, who says his old sponsor, Jockey, would have been thrilled. Marissa Parra is joining us now. There's a lot to this, right? Because it's not just a spectacle. And it is a spectacle. It's the point that, like, even the union head now is sounding the alarm about this, right? Because it's how they fit, because these players have to be in them.
Right, exactly. And they need to be focusing on the game. So in many ways, some of the criticism that we're hearing is that this is distracting. And for anyone following, we know NBC has been reporting on how wildly unpopular the uniforms have been. And for those who haven't been following, the uniforms, by the way, they're designed by Nike. They're manufactured by Fanatics. And the top complaints that we're hearing, the newest ones about these new pants being they're sheer, they're see-through. You saw in that video just now with Hallie, they're not tailored to player-specific body types, and they're not even available to everyone. Not all the players in the league have the new pants, which, Hallie, I guess given the complaints, not everyone is necessarily too unhappy about.
Some of the players are like, guys, you got to suck it up. You have the Padres pitcher, Joe Musgrove, who told The Athletic, it's frustrating, but you can, he used a bad word, you can blank all you want about not liking them. We've got to deal with it. The point is, though, this is a big business. I mean, you talked about it, right? The way they're designed, the way they're distributed. It's two multi-billion-dollar businesses, that are struggling this week over something that seems really fundamental to the game, and that's just what you wear.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, we talked about the distracting nature of it. You just mentioned San Diego Padres pitcher Musgrove saying, you know, it is distracting, but he's still going to wear the pants there. And I want to point something out, by the way. There are some players who have actually said and spoken out saying they like the pants. Worth noting, though, those who have been expressing the loudest praise do happen to be Nike-sponsored athletes. Take from that what you will. But MLB argues that the new uniforms improve mobility by 25% more stretching. They're moisture wicking. They're more breathable, more comfortable, less bulky. But, Hallie, multiple things can be true at once. That might be true. But we're also seeing these issues, perhaps with the new type of material to provide for that is maybe why we're seeing that they are, in fact, see-through. So this is, as you mentioned, an expensive industry. These are companies, and the dollar amount that you're going to see on your screen in just a moment, these are worth in the tens of billions of dollars. All of this, by the way, Hallie, stemming from a 2019 deal with Nike and Fanatics, over $1 billion for what is a decade-long deal. So perhaps some time to still smooth out the kinks here, if you will.
Marissa Parr, thank you very much for that one. Appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to get to some breaking news just into us. A verdict reached in that high-profile NRA trial. We're going to have that for you next, just as soon as the jury returns it. We'll be right back. I want to get to some news just breaking into us in just the last couple of minutes here with that high-profile deliberation by a New York jury finding Wayne LaPierre liable for diverting millions of dollars of NRA money on his personal spending, essentially. The NRA, they're saying, failed to manage their finances. NBC legal analysts Carol Lamb and Lisa Rubin are both joining us now. Carol, let me start with you to talk through the nuts and bolts here and just to lay it out for people, essentially. The state attorney general in this case had essentially said that Wayne LaPierre turned this into Wayne's World, right? Spending millions of dollars on trips and jets. They were like kids with their hands in the cookie jar, essentially, is the argument they made. The defense, LaPierre's attorneys, came back and said, well, wait a second. No, this was not, you know, they distanced themselves from LaPierre. They said this was rogue employees, essentially. Now you've got a jury finding LaPierre liable. What does that mean, and what are the consequences?
Yeah, so Hallie, this is a civil trial, and again, it's right. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, who just obtained that very large judgment against Donald Trump, and she had been doing this investigation for 3 years. She brought this case; it's a civil case. She brought this case because the Attorney General of a state actually has jurisdiction over nonprofits, and the NRA is a nonprofit. And the allegation that she brought in the complaint was that Wayne LaPierre, as well as the NRA and the general counsel and the treasurer and the head of operations, had all run the NRA as a sort of cookie jar piggy bank where they dipped into it as they wished to pay for private jets, benefits to their own families, and they gave an astonishingly large amount of money to contractors who then gave them kickbacks in the form of benefits and vacations and such. And so the jury, again, this is a civil case, so they didn't have to get a unanimous jury of 12. The jury consisted of 6 people, and they found them liable civilly for all this misconduct.
So, Lisa, what does this mean for the future of the NRA here? What are the implications?
So initially, Hallie, when the Attorney General of New York filed this suit, she was seeking the dissolution of the NRA as a New York charity. It is a nonprofit organization essentially based on the laws of the state of New York. At an earlier phase of the case, however, the judge overseeing the case dismissed that portion. And so what remained for the jury to decide was the NRA improperly managed and, in fact, corruptly managed, and who was responsible for that and to what dollar amount? We know today that Wayne LaPierre will need to pay back $5.4 million to the NRA, and that the jury also found that while he paid back some of that money, he's only paid back a little over $1 million thus far. So Wayne LaPierre, unless he achieves an appellate victory, still's got a bunch of money left to pay to the NRA for all of his misdeeds.
Is an appeal possible here, Lisa?
It is. An appeal is always possible. It's a civil judgment. We'll have to wait to see what other relief the judge awards, Hallie. There may be other aspects of this judgment, including, for example, disqualifying people from serving as officers or directors of New York charities. There was a gentleman here, John Frazier, who is the sole defendant who's still employed by the NRA. Whether he can remain employed by the NRA is going to be up to the judge as part of this verdict as well. But I expect that one or more parties may take an appeal.
Lisa Rubin, Carol Lamb, thank you both so much for jumping in on this developing news coming into us here on a Friday night, significant there related to the NRA and Wayne LaPierre. Thank you. We got a lot more to get to here in the show, including just ahead in the backstory, pulling back the curtain on a real bizarre one, how a magician ended up in the center of an election year controversy, and how our NBC News team was tipped off about it. To our backstory now, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, it's an NBC News exclusive. The story of how a New Orleans magician, a guy who holds world records in fork bending and escaping straitjackets, how this guy found himself part of what is now a multi-state investigation. It all goes back to January and the days leading up to New Hampshire's Democratic primary. Investigators say as many as 25,000 potential voters in that state picked up the phone and heard this.
What a bunch of malarkey. We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election.
Okay, let's be crystal clear. That was a robocall you just heard that was not the voice of President Biden. Sounded like him, wasn't him. It was AI generated. President Biden's name wasn't on the ballot in New Hampshire because of this party beef with state Democrats, but the president never encouraged voters to skip the election. NBC News traced the origin of that robocall to this magician, a guy named Paul Carpenter. He told us he was hired to make that AI robocall by a veteran Democratic strategist, a strategist working for the campaign of President Biden's long-shot Democratic opponent, Dean Phillips. Now, this strategist, Carpenter, the magician, essentially pleads ignorance on this. He says there was no malicious intent. He said he didn't know how the call was going to be used. The Phillips campaign says they were also caught off guard. A spokesperson says, "We are disgusted to learn that Mr. Kramer," that's the strategist, "is allegedly behind this call. And if the allegations are true, we absolutely denounce his actions." So this guy, Steve Kramer, the strategist, when we reached out, says we should keep our eyes peeled for an op-ed coming out tomorrow. Kramer speaking out at all about this as a change based on our reporting. When NBC News first broke the news of the fake Biden robocall, Kramer texted Carpenter, the magician, a link to the story along with a message, "Shh," to which Carpenter replied, "GTFOOH, a.k.a. get the F out of here." Let's go to Alex Seitzwald, who has this one. Okay, so that's the contours of this story. I urge people to read it because it is bananas. How did this even come about in the first place? Because I will tell you, I was kind of stunned to learn it came from like one of these random tip emails that journalists get like dozens of every day.
That's exactly right, Hallie. And you and I both have probably ignored dozens of those in our career. And for whatever reason, that day, I saw the subject line robocall creator, and I was intrigued. I had broken the original story of the Biden robocall along with our colleague Mike Memoli. So this was obviously of interest to me. And I got on the phone with this guy, and he was clearly an eccentric, but then he started to produce receipts. Within an hour of being on the phone with him, he was sending me text messages and Venmo transactions. Later, I got call logs. He sent me the original audio of the deep fake that he produced. So I got on a plane and flew down to New Orleans, and I sat with him as he showed me exactly how he made it using my voice for legal reasons instead of Biden's. And we were able to confirm it independently and then talk to Kramer, and he is not denying it. So it was definitely an unusual thread to pull on, but we ended up getting the story at the other end of it.
So you go down to New Orleans to meet this guy. You took the pictures yourself of him, like on the street, with this magician / performance artist / NFT maker who rides his motorcycle around the city with a Chihuahua who wears goggles named Moose sitting next to him. There's Moose. What were you thinking? Like, what was going through your mind as you were getting to know Carpenter here and you were learning more about what had happened and seeing, as you say, seeing the receipts that showed that he ended up, whether he knew it or not, being the guy at the center of a political scandal?
Yeah, I mean, he is a character, to say the least, a total eclectic. He doesn't really have a fixed address. He travels around. He performs street magic and other kinds of performance art. But I found him credible, and I was able to verify every detail of his life and of his involvement, or at least many of them. And then I spoke to another Democratic strategist who had just randomly received an urgent message from Steve Kramer, the strategist here, in January, asking for help involving the Biden robocall. So that just sealed the deal for me. And then when I sat down and he showed me how he made it, I found it eerie, and I found it incredible how easy it was in 20 minutes and for $1 to do this.
Let me play a bit of that, because as you say, he worked through the process with you. We have a little clip. Let me play it.
Hi, comma. I am a robot version of Alex, and I love NBC and my bosses, and so we'll generate that one this time.
Hi, I am a robot version of Alex, and I love NBC and my bosses.
Dude, that sounds like you. That's ridiculously you.
Dude, that is ridiculously you. I have to tell you, I got one of our colleagues here for a different upcoming story used my voice on an AI thing, and I was like, it doesn't really sound like me. It's eerie, though. It's uncanny. Does that give you a sense, just as a journalist, of how sort of scary this whole issue is as we head into this presidential election year?
Absolutely, Hallie. I mean, my biggest takeaway here was if he could do this, anybody could do this. This was not a sophisticated, high-tech, well-funded cloak and dagger operation. This was essentially two guys messing around on the internet. He was paid $150 for this. So I think we need to look out not just for campaigns, but for teenagers, for gadflies, for anybody producing these things going forward.
Alex Seitzwald pulling back the curtain on a story that is reverberating through the political world today. Thank you so much, friend. Good to see you. Thank you for bringing us that behind-the-scenes look at that story. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with a person in custody at the University of Georgia in the case of a nursing student found dead on campus. We'll take you live down to Athens with the new updates we're just getting from police. We're also live in Alabama, where Republicans all the way up to former President Trump are backing away from that controversial court ruling that's causing health facilities all across that state to stop IVF procedures. The new moves to pass some new protections, with patients concerned about what's next. Then, in the breakdown, with a little more than 24 hours to go, not even 14 hours, 13 hours till voters start voting in South Carolina, we're going to explain how the rules of this Republican race already might make it super hard for Nikki Haley to catch up to Donald Trump. Plus, a new case of the measles in Florida as states scramble to stop it from becoming a full-blown outbreak, with the CDC saying, and the chaotic explosion of a house caught on camera. We're going to show you how it happened and what neighbors were so terrified about. That's coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and in just the last hour, we're learning a suspect is now in custody, a person of interest, in connection to what has become a homicide investigation of a nursing student found dead on the University of Georgia's campus. The investigation seems to be focused on this apartment complex. You're seeing it here. You see police, they're like looking around, looking through at one point some of the trash cans across the street from that complex. The victim, 22-year-old Laken Riley. Here she is. She was a student at UGA through last spring. Then she transferred to nearby Augusta University's College of Nursing. She was a junior on the dean's list. And here's the timeline of what we know, that yesterday, a couple of minutes after noon, a friend calls UGA police, concerned because she hadn't returned from a run near some school fields. Around 12:20, officers responded to the area, and about 15 minutes later found her body in the woods behind a lake nearby, declared dead at the scene with what they describe as visible injuries. Blaine Alexander is out near that community in Athens, Georgia. We understand we're going to get an update from some officials in just about 60 minutes from now, but bring us up to speed about what we know about the suspect and why police are focusing on this particular set of apartments.
Well, a little less than an hour, Hallie. We hope to get all of those questions answered. So what we know right now are several different facts. We don't know how or if they're connected, but I'll run down for you what we know right now. We know that this afternoon, or earlier this afternoon, police made a large presence here at this apartment complex. They still have some bit of a presence here now. They started searching. They were looking through things. They were looking through trash cans at one point. We know that after that kind of search got underway, the university announced that there was a person of interest who was being questioned. Now, a few hours after that, that's when we got the update that a suspect has been arrested and has been taken into custody. Now, we don't know if that suspect has to do with this apartment complex. We don't necessarily know how all of those pieces are related. That's what we're hoping to find out tonight at 7 o'clock.
Some of the students that I know that you and our team have talked with have been stressing how they feel so obviously upset, concerned, worried. Some of them are pointing to like those blue light call boxes that a lot of schools have that this campus apparently doesn't. Talk to us about the accountability piece of this and about just the campus reaction after a horrific trauma like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked with a number of students, several who go here now and several who are former students but recently graduated, and they all kind of said the same thing. Typically, this is a very safe campus. That's why this is so jarring to so many of them. They say they walk around, they didn't necessarily fear for their safety. One person even told me that the area where this happened really is known as a safe space for students. They go out there, they study there, they work out there sometimes. So that's why all of this is so jarring. I spoke with one young lady. She's a senior. She actually lives right by the area, right by the intramural fields where all of this happened. And here's what she told me about her reaction. Take a look.
On campus, I normally feel really safe, but after this, obviously, it's kind of scary and unsettling. From now on, my roommates and I shared our locations, making sure that we know where we're at.
Share their locations. They don't travel alone. That's something that university officials were trying to urge people to do, to travel in packs. Now, as for those blue lights, we asked the communications director about this, and he said that over the past 8 years or so, they were only used a handful of times. So now, instead of those blue lights, they've replaced it with an app called UGA Safe. It's something that students can download, they can use to kind of notify officials if there are any sort of concerns. So that's kind of what they say their replacement is. They say that, of course, safety is top of mind. They were stressing all along there was no immediate danger to students. But, of course, anytime you have a suspect on the loose, that's cause for concern. And, again, classes were canceled today, and they were just warning students to be vigilant. Hallie.
Blaine Alexander live for us there in Athens. We're glad to have you there, Blaine, with a lot of moving pieces. And, again, more updates in just under an hour from now, we think. Thanks, Blaine. Some pushback tonight from nearly all sides on that controversial Alabama court ruling saying embryos are people. A ruling throwing the future of IVF in that state into question, with lawmakers in Alabama and at the White House now scrambling to contain the fallout and limit the damage, including tonight members of both parties in Alabama. These are state lawmakers moving fast to try to protect IVF by passing new state laws after multiple health care facilities stopped in vitro fertilization procedures because of this ruling. Now, those state lawmakers are doing just what former President Trump would like them to do. Here's the former president, and again, current frontrunner for the Republican nomination. Here he is just within the last maybe 90 minutes, not even, in South Carolina.
Today, I'm calling on the Alabama legislature to act quickly to find an immediate solution to preserve the availability of IVF in Alabama, and I'm sure they're going to do that.
There's a political overlay to this, obviously. You've got the Republican Senate campaign arm sending out essentially talking points to Republican candidates, encouraging them to publicly, clearly state their support for IVF, which is broadly backed across political lines. 80% of people, including evangelicals, including people who describe themselves as pro-life, support IVF. Here in Washington at the White House, some new NBC News reporting on high-level talks about potential next steps from the Biden administration, according to multiple administration officials familiar with the matter. Yamiche Alcindor has made her way to Alabama. She's live in Birmingham and joins us now. So you are on the ground there, Yamiche, in Alabama, where you've got lawmakers now scrambling on the state level. You have the White House trying to take some action potentially on the federal level. Let me play for folks what Republican State Senator Tim Milson had to say on this.
We have advanced so far in medicine that we're storing everything from embryos to sperm to eggs for future use, and we hadn't really thought about the consequences of that. I mean, it's time, and it's to figure that out.
Okay, well, they're figuring out, even as some patients are now in kind of a purgatory here. They can't get the IVF procedures they want to get. They're having trouble figuring out where they can transfer their embryos to, if it's to other states or what. Talk us through it.
Well, Hallie, the fear, anger, and frankly, the shock is palpable here in Alabama while patients are trying to figure out what to do, as at least 3 clinics have already paused giving IVF treatments. Now, I talked to a number of women who are going to be impacted by this, and they all say that they're very, very worried about whether or not they'll be able to grow their families. I talked to a woman in particular, Kelly Belmont. She said her lifelong dream is to become a mother. Take a listen to what she said about her situation now.
There's really no way to describe the fear that at some point a phone call could come and my doctor could say, hey, we're pulling the plug on the program and we're not going to be able to continue until further notice.
Now, for right now, Kelly and her husband James are able to go through with what is going to be their second round of IVF. And there is, as the day has gone on, this feeling that there might be hope for families who want to pursue IVF in the state, because we have seen, of course, as you said, former President Trump coming out and urging lawmakers in the state to support IVF. We've also seen a move in the state legislature by Democrats and Republicans to introduce bills to protect IVF. And just recently, the Alabama State Attorney General came out and said, I want to read for you, part of his office said he has no intention of using the recent Alabama Supreme Court decision as a basis for prosecuting IVF families or providers. So that tells you that really the Alabama Attorney General is also saying, hey, we want to not go after people on this issue of IVF, Hallie.
Bigger concern for some of these healthcare facilities is less the potential of criminal prosecution, as the state AG is making clear, more about the civil liability issue of it all. Could they get sued for a ton of money? They don't want to see that happen. They're concerned about that piece of the risk.
That's completely right. You have a number of clinics who are very, very concerned about that. I also want to say that, as we talked about the president coming out, you have the White House coming out and saying that this is the sort of chaos that you see that they expected after overturning Roe v. Wade. I also want to read part of what the Chief Supreme Court Justice here said, Tom Parker. I know you're going to, at some point, we should talk about the sort of implications here. And he wrote in part, human life cannot be destroyed without incurring the wrath of holy God. Even before birth, all human beings bear the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing it. And that's really getting a lot of backlash here, because I talked to a number of women in Alabama, a state that's very conservative here, saying their faith tells them that they should love their neighbors and not judge people, and that they should be able to grow their families. So there's really a lot of contention here, not only on, of course, what's going on around the country, but also specifically here as people are talking about faith here. Hallie? You mentioned the controversy surrounding the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. Obviously, he didn't. The ruling was 8-1. He didn't tip the outcome. He didn't tip the scales, if you will, on the outcome. But there's a lot of attention on him, somebody who was considered even years ago, right, well before this particular ruling, somebody who was seen as an architect of the movement that ultimately ended up toppling Roe versus Wade in the Supreme Court. That's right. And we have, of course, new reporting on NBCNews.com that the same day that he was issuing his concurring opinion where he quoted the Bible talking about the wrath of God, he also was saying in an interview that he believes that society, America, should be reshaped in the image of the beliefs of conservative Christians. So there's really a lot of worry that this state Supreme Court Chief Justice was really unfairly including his faith beliefs in a decision that now is having so much impact here in the state, impacting thousands and thousands of patients. But that being said, as I said, that things here seem to be moving in the direction of people being able to, at some point, possibly, to access IVF treatments. Hallie? Yamiche, thank you so much. Live for us there in Birmingham, Alabama. Thanks, Yamiche. We are now just about 13 hours away from voters heading to the polls in South Carolina, with Nikki Haley rallying there as we speak. Even though this is a live look, it looks like the pre-show has begun here. Voters in her own home state are expected to send the message that she cannot stop former President Trump's march to the nomination. We've got both candidates working up and down the state today, even though virtually every South Carolina primary poll has Mr. Trump crushing Haley by as many as 35 points. Now, if that or even anything close to that happens, it could make history. It could be the worst loss for a primary candidate in their home state in recent memory. You're looking at 2016, when Marco Rubio lost by 19 points to Donald Trump in Florida. That's Rubio's home state. We'll see how Haley does in South Carolina. She and her campaign have said for weeks that this state, win or lose, is not going to be the end of the road for them. NBC's Ali Vitale is with Haley in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina now, where I know it is a loud rally behind you here as she is making her sort of last closing argument before polls open. She's been dialing up her attacks on former President Trump. She's been hitting the issue of NATO and Russia, even though, as you well know, that is not one that seems to be resonating with a lot of primary voters, at least based on polling. What's the sense from her campaign as to where this goes next?
Well, look, they're going to Michigan regardless, Hallie. And I remember I started last hour telling you this is the place where you'd want to have your primary eve rally. This is exactly the backdrop that you would want for something like that as well. You've got the sun setting, majestic American flags, and a packed crowd that's enthusiastic for their two-time governor of the state of South Carolina. Of course, that history in any other election cycle might mean something. Here, though, it's earning Haley a 2-1 loss in the polls in terms of her margin connections with former President Donald Trump. Nevertheless, they say that they are not just plowing through South Carolina. They are moving all the way through Michigan, which votes next on Tuesday, and then going to the Super Tuesday states. The question, though, Hallie, is what happens after that? Because Nikki Haley has long said she's staying in this race to provide an alternative for voters. Certainly, she's the only one left. As she likes to remind, she beat 12 fellas on her road to being one-on-one with the former president. But what happens after Super Tuesday is the open question. And frankly, it's one that I asked Haley, and it's one that I asked her campaign manager today. Her campaign manager dodged, simply saying they're focused on Super Tuesday, but they've got folks on the ground through the end of the month. No sign for sure of what they need to see to keep going. But for now, they're sticking it out.
Hallie Vitale live for us there in South Carolina. Hallie, we will see you right back there or somewhere near there or in the state tomorrow for our special coverage. Hallie, thank you. That is coming up tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern, right here on NBC News Now. However you're watching, be sure to tune in. I'll be joined by not just Hallie, but our team of correspondents and political pros fanned out across the state and in studio with me, along with Chuck Todd and many others. So listen, I want to get to some news that's breaking into us in just the last hour or so. This New York jury finding both the NRA and its former CEO, Wayne LaPierre, liable in a civil corruption trial. LaPierre, remember, has long been the face of the NRA, at least he was. But a jury has agreed that he essentially took millions of dollars from the group for his own lavish personal expenses. The jury also found the NRA itself should be held liable for failing to properly manage its finances. NBC News legal analyst Lisa Rubin is joining us now. Okay, civil trial, right? Not criminal here, but still a huge verdict, essentially, against Wayne LaPierre. What does it mean for him and for the future of this powerful lobbying group?
Well, Hallie, let's start with what it means for him, because Wayne LaPierre resigned from the NRA last month, and so he is no longer the executive vice president of the organization. But based on this finding, Wayne LaPierre also owes the NRA itself $5.4 million that he was personally responsible for diverting from the organization.
So what does this mean then moving forward more broadly, right? Because you look at the NRA, this issue of the potential for corruption inside the organization has been one that has persisted, as you well know, for years and years, Lisa. It seems like during this trial, the NRA tried to distance itself from LaPierre, who for a long time was really seen as the face of the NRA.
That's right. And there were other defendants, Hallie, as well, people whose names are not as recognizable to the general public. Yeah. I think taking a step back, the finding by a 6-person jury that the NRA was corruptly managed as a New York-based charitable organization is a devastating one for the gun lobby in general. There is no person who is ready to step into Wayne LaPierre's role. There is no organization that is ready to step into the NRA's role. There is a leadership vacuum now in the gun rights movement, and anybody who affiliates themselves with the NRA will also have to contend with this jury's finding that the NRA, for a period of up to 8 years, was corruptly managed by people who were not executing on their statutory duty to be good custodians of what is, at base, a charitable institution.
Lisa Rubin, we're glad to have you breaking this one down for us. Thank you very much for being on with us tonight. To a boom moment now for the markets, setting new records tonight, capping off a winning week in what's been a monster year for Wall Street and probably for your 401k. Check this out. New record for the Dow. The S&P hit a record earlier in the day. A lot of it driven by one company, NVIDIA. Goldman Sachs says right now it's the most important stock on earth. Others say it's having a Taylor Swift moment. So what is NVIDIA? What is that? You might know them if you're big into video games. NVIDIA makes computer chips, specifically chips that make you able to watch this show on a computer, on your smart TV, your phone, whatever. That puts them at the center of the so-called AI revolution. And that's why investors are so excited, to the point NVIDIA touched $2 trillion in value at one point today. We're at the point where these 7 companies, you see them here, the big tech companies you know and use, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, they make up nearly a third of that S&P record high. And that puts us in territory we haven't seen since Coolio had the #1 song in the country. And the first Toy Story was still in theaters. 1995, when the internet was booming, when tech stocks drove everything, markets, jobs, you name it. Is that the moment we're in now? More importantly, is it here to stay? Because just 4 years later, in '99, a lot of those tech stocks collapsed in the dot-com bubble. Christine Romans is joining us now. So let me put that to you.
Yeah.
Is this a 95 moment? Is this a party like it's 99? Where are we?
I got to tell you, well, the amazing Dan Ives, who sort of made that construct, he is a Wall Street analyst who says this is 95 all the way. Imagine 95. That's when Steve Jobs was saying there's going to be a computer on every desk. And the world said, are you crazy? That's not going to happen. And it did. And it really inspired more than a decade, actually a couple of decades of major technology growth. Here's what Dan Ives says at Wedbush. You can see his comment there. He says, this is a 1995 moment. If you put that back up, I can read for you. We are confident now the AI revolution and $1 trillion of incremental spending over the next decade is hitting the software ecosystem and the rest of the tech sector. One thing about NVIDIA, I got to tell you, there are really high expectations for this company, and it reported earnings this week that were better, tripled its revenue. I mean, it just keeps performing and is really a big driver here of a lot of this AI enthusiasm. One analyst described it this way: this moment, it's the steam engine. I mean, that's the kind of technology we're talking about here. That changed every industry and changed living standards around the world.
So I think that's super interesting, the analogy that you're using, Christine, the idea of a steam engine, because I think some people might hear you talk and hear the way that you're talking about this and think, is it a bubble?
Yeah.
Right? It's less about that, and it seems to be more foundationally changing the way that things could work down the road. I mean, listen, kind of like the internet.
Yeah, and at some point, it's got to spread out from just a few companies, right? I mean, at some point, other companies, even more plain vanilla, not on the surface tech companies, will start to begin to use AI in a way that will change how their business goes. And so what Dan Ives and others are saying is, and the market, frankly, is saying, is that you're just at the beginning of that moment. But a lot of people say it does feel so bubbly. The S&P 500 is up 28% over the past year. That's likely what your stocks in your 401k probably look more like the S&P 500, but a big chunk of that, you're right, is these 7 tech stocks or this tech sector. So will it all broaden out from there? And then you've got even more gains. Look at NVIDIA stock. Isn't that amazing? Yesterday, what it added in market value just yesterday on its big rally day was more than the size, I think, of 90% of the S&P 500 companies. Just NVIDIA in one day. I've never seen something like that.
But so what does it mean? We say this a lot, and I know that the market is not the economy, right? The markets are not the economic picture. Bring it back home to people who are like, hey, I'm not watching CNBC, right? Like, how should people who have a 401k, don't have a 401k, how should they be thinking about this moment right now as it relates to sort of the bread and butter for all of us, going out to the grocery store, trying to pay our rent, our mortgage, whatever?
A couple of interesting points on that. You know, you probably have more in your 401k today, for sure, than you did last year or the year before, right? And especially for baby boomers, you know, we're heading this year, I think 4.1 million people will turn 65 this year, and they've got many of them have a nice little nest egg. So that allows them things like, maybe deciding this year to move out of their house and move into a smaller house, and they don't worry so much about mortgage rates. There are a lot of different ways this stock market euphoria at the moment can spill into the rest of the economy. But you're absolutely right. The sentiment indicators are not yet reflecting all of this. And about a half of American households don't own stocks at all, right? So it is, I guess, it's an interesting place to be, where on the one hand, people still know the grocery bill is 25% higher than last year, and car insurance is record highs, but the stock market is doing quite well, and people are real excited about AI.
Christine Romans, thank you for breaking it down for us and helping us understand this really remarkable moment. Appreciate it. To the White House now, where President Biden is all but begging governors to push Republicans in Congress to get behind more money for Ukraine as he's rolling out a new round of sanctions in response to the killing of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
And that's what Putin is betting on. He's betting on we're going to walk away. America stands up for freedom. We never bow to anyone, particularly Putin.
This round of 500-plus sanctions hit at a bunch of different groups in Russia, like the people responsible for putting Navalny in prison, like Russian banks, Russia's defense industry, groups in other countries like China, Turkey, and Iran that help Russia, and people who are trying to evade the sanctions that are already in place. Ali Rafa is live for us at the White House. Give us a sense of the message that the White House hopes this sends to Putin.
Yeah, Hallie, well, through issuing these sanctions, the White House is trying to put pressure on Putin, trying to put pressure on this war machine, but also send a very personal message, especially after we saw the president lay the blame for Alexei Navalny's death squarely at the feet of President Vladimir Putin. So you're seeing that reflected in these new sanctions revealed today. You talked about a few of them there. Sanctions on people and entities inside and outside of Russia that have bolstered Russia's energy industry, its military and financial infrastructure. These are new sanctions even on Iran that has provided hundreds of ballistic missiles to Russia in its war effort against Ukraine. And this afternoon, we learned of new sanctions from the Treasury Department on these Russian oil tankers and several other tankers that this shipping company by Russia owns, trying to target those oil revenues as Russia continues to sell oil since invading Ukraine. And officials say that they expect there to be concrete results from this, but not in the short term. They expect this to take quite a bit of time as they squeeze Russia of these resources, Hallie.
You also heard President Biden making that push to try to get some new aid money, basically, new funding for Ukraine. You've got the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, in Ukraine today with President Volodymyr Zelensky to talk about how important that is. Watch.
We want to tell them what we have seen. We want to show them. We have heard from so many that if you don't get the aid, you will lose the war. But if you get the aid, you will win the war.
So what is the level of optimism here? Where does that stand in the eyes of the White House for getting more funding to this country?
Well, as hard as it may be to believe, this is really the White House's main goal, is to try to put pressure on these Republicans who have been holding up that aid to Ukraine. And the president lambasted lawmakers earlier today for leaving on this 2-week recess before addressing this aid package that's really just in limbo in Congress after passing with overwhelming support in the Senate, but then getting stalled in the House. And the president said that this was because of House Speaker Mike Johnson's unwillingness to put this bill on the floor. He says that it would have the support needed to pass if House Speaker Mike Johnson would just put it on the House floor for a vote. And we have some new reporting, Hallie, by our Hill team colleagues on what we could potentially see happen next, with our colleagues reporting that there is now a bipartisan effort to actually get this effort across the finish line. Our colleagues say that Speaker Johnson is considering a wide range of options for how to do this. They say he also is still seeking an in-person meeting with President Biden, but has not heard back from the White House on when that could potentially be scheduled, Hallie. So definitely something to watch.
For sure. Ali Rafa, thank you. We've got to get to some breaking news now because we're just learning of an Apache helicopter crash during a routine training flight in Mississippi. According to the government, apparently both National Guardsmen on board have died. The governor announced the crash in a tweet, saying he is praying for their families, saying the state will always be grateful for their service. This is, again, the Mississippi National Guard, as announced by Governor Reeves. This is now the third military helicopter crash in just the last couple of months. We're going to be watching for more details. We will bring those to you as we get them. We are also just tonight getting in some new numbers showing measles on the rise across the country. 35 cases now, according to the CDC. Florida apparently has the most. It just confirmed its 7th case, a child under the age of 5. So these 15 states you see here, according to the CDC, now dealing with measles in this outbreak. Michigan health officials also announcing a case late today. That's its first since 2019. Where you live obviously has a lot to do with how at risk you are for catching measles, depending on your state's policies around quarantining, how many people around you are vaxxed, whether your state has more exemptions for vaccines. Erica Edwards is joining us now. You've done a lot of reporting on this. You've got a big story dropping on NBCnews.com tomorrow. Give us a comparison of how different states are dealing with these outbreaks and what is really happening down in Florida.
Yeah, you know, measles control, infection control 101 is pretty standard. Identify the cases, isolate those patients for at least 21 days, 3 weeks, and offer education and vaccinations. Now, that's what most states do pretty successfully overall. And the key, they say, is clear, direct guidance for parents. Now, Florida is handling things a little differently. The state's Surgeon General has told parents it's completely up to them over whether they want to send their unvaccinated children back to school. But dozens of kids at Manatee Bay Elementary, where this outbreak began, are vulnerable. 33 out of the more than 1,000 students at the school are unvaccinated, and Florida's Surgeon General is also not openly encouraging those students to get vaccinated. The shots have been proven very safe and highly effective. Hallie?
What is the CDC saying about what states should be doing to try to contain this outbreak, even as the numbers are going up?
You know, the biggest thing is to encourage measles vaccinations. We need to have 95% coverage to keep outbreaks like this at bay. Right now, nationally, we're only at 93%, and vaccine exemptions are up in a majority of states. Now, how to get this? The measles vaccine works so well, it can even be used to help unvaccinated kids after they've been exposed to the virus. If an unvaccinated child gets just one dose of the vaccine, after an exposure, their quarantine goes from 21 days to just 72 hours. That's how effective it is. Hallie?
Erica Edwards, thank you so much for that. We're looking forward to seeing more of your reporting on NBCnews.com. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, a big apartment fire in Spain, killing at least 10 people. Why experts say it spread so fast. Plus, as we talked about, Nikki Haley behind in the polls ahead of tomorrow's primary. But we'll explain how the GOP party rules are also maybe making a difference here. That's ahead in the breakdown. Tonight, a new look at some pretty scary body cam video of a house exploding in Michigan. Terrified neighbors running, screaming toward officers, warning somebody may be trapped inside. Look at that. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Like something out of a disaster movie. Body camera video just released by Ann Arbor police gives a first-hand look at Monday morning's jaw-dropping home explosion that rocked this quiet Michigan neighborhood.
What did you think when you saw how big this was?
Definitely was a surprise for me. I was really shocked.
Oh my God, there's been an explosion across the street.
Beginning with 911 calls and dash cam video as police race toward the scene, the nearly 2-minute clip shows a neighbor blurred by police running toward Officer Zach Cunningham.
Is anybody there do you know of?
Somebody was in there and
The other officer very quickly found the man who they thought was inside. It turns out, thankfully, he wasn't. He was outside the home.
Correct. I think Officer Betts was able to locate him within the first 30 to 60 seconds of us being on scene.
Everybody back up! Officers scramble to clear the area. Moments later, the home completely caves in.
There's a chimney that's a brick chimney. The brick actually makes it all the way across the street into the neighbor's yard.
Oh, it scared the living daylights out of me.
Our affiliate WDIV was there in the aftermath of Monday's fire as neighbors and the city's fire chief pieced together what happened.
We do have reports that propane was possibly being used inside of the house for heating.
Investigators later confirming propane tanks caused the explosion, adding no other homes were damaged, and the man who lived there in his 70s was injured but survived. He and his neighbors now left with a terrifying story to tell, caught on camera.
Terrifying, to say the least, Maggie. Joining us now from Chicago. Yeah. We mentioned neighbors originally thought somebody may have been trapped inside. That was not the case?
That was not the case. So that's the homeowner who they thought was still inside. They just hadn't seen him. So first responders, knowing that, went looking for him, thankfully found him in the driveway. And I talked to a family rep who said he was injured, but he survived. He's recovering. He's already actually out of the hospital, which is obviously a really good sign. But they said basically he got out of the house because there was a fire that it started initially. They don't know how that fire started just yet. But when it reached the propane tanks, that's what caused the explosion. The force of the explosion, I was told, blew him backwards, and that basically is what caused his injuries. But first responders found him right away, Hallie, and got him the help he needed, thankfully, because that video, as you saw, is so intense.
Completely. Maggie Vespa, thank you for bringing us that one. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, police in Oklahoma say they are looking into the death of an LGBTQ teenager who died a day after they were allegedly assaulted in a school bathroom. We told you about this story earlier in the week. We still don't have cause of death, but the preliminary info shows it's not related to trauma. The teen's mother told a local news outlet they'd been bullied over gender identity. Officials are expected to release video of what happened in the bathroom at some point, but no details on when. Number 2, the first witnesses taking the stand today in the trial of Rust movie armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Remember, she's been charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of the film's cinematographer, Helena Hutchins. The witnesses, called by the prosecution, testified about guns and the use of ammo on set. Number 3, a Florida bill to ban social media for kids under the age of 16 heading to the governor's desk now after it was passed by state lawmakers. The bill targets any social media that tracks user activity, allows children to upload material, or uses addictive features. Governor DeSantis has expressed concerns about the bill, and opponents say it violates the First Amendment, that it should be up to parents to monitor their kids' social media use. Number 4, yet another airline is raising what it costs to check your bag. $40 a bag on United, $35 if you pay in advance. It's a $5 increase right on the heels of American Airlines, along with JetBlue and Alaska, all raising bag fees this year. Coming up, some pretty wild video shows this 100-car pileup in China. Where do you see it? Oof, cars just smushed together. We'll tell you what led to the whole thing coming up in The Global. Back to the South Carolina primary now, with voters set to get out there first thing in the morning, heading to polling sites. And you probably already know Nikki Haley's trailing behind Donald Trump in polling. But you may not know why Republican primary rules may be making it harder for Haley to catch up when it comes to delegates. That's tonight's breakdown.
I'm in this for the long haul.
Nikki Haley pledging she will stay in this race for the GOP nomination. And the winner, when all is said and done, will need 1,215 delegates. More than 2,000 delegates are still up for grabs. But the Republican rules of the road may make it super hard for Haley to gain much ground delegate-wise. Why? More than a quarter of states and territories changed their rules over the last few years.
What you're left with is a set of rules, a patchwork of rules across the states that are immensely front-runner friendly, as I called them.
The rules in South Carolina mean that even if she wins 20, 30, even 40% of the vote there, she may not get a single delegate. And that's the case, this winner-take-all approach, in dozens of states on the GOP primary calendar. 13 of the states left will give all their delegates to whichever candidate gets the most votes, without requiring that person to break some kind of threshold. A bunch more states will do the same for any candidate who wins a majority of the vote. Compare that to how the Democrats handle things, awarding delegates proportionately, where anyone with 15% or more of the vote gets at least some number of delegates, which the party says keeps things competitive. Haley's campaign already looking ahead to Super Tuesday, March 5th. That's when 15 states will award more than a third of all GOP delegates.
I have every intention of going to Super Tuesday.
But the math may not be mathing for Haley. Almost a third of the nearly 900 delegates awarded Super Tuesday come from states where the majority winner goes home with all the delegates. And Mr. Trump, at the moment, is favored to take most of them. For Haley, the path to the nomination would require a seismic shift in GOP support, one we haven't seen so far in this race, as Donald Trump, undefeated in the primary for now, marches on. Whatever happens tomorrow, though, we will, of course, be all over it. You can catch all of our South Carolina primary coverage starting at 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. I will be joined by our team, fanned out all across the state, right here, however you're watching on NBC News Now. Coming up, the war in Ukraine, 2 years after the invasion began. Our Richard Engel takes us to one of the most critical battle zones, which also happens to be a critical power source for Europe. The dangers for the region at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, coming up in tonight's Original. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Spain, at least 9 people have been killed in a huge fire at 2 apartment buildings in Valencia. Officials are still trying to figure out the cause of it, but experts say that it might have spread so quickly because of the material these buildings were made out of. The government has declared 3 days of mourning. Out of China, several people hurt after this massive car pileup. Look at this, 100 cars, more than that, crashing into each other on an icy overpass. Parts of China have been getting a whole bunch of snow and freezing rain. The road has since reopened, and officials are investigating. And out of the UK, some new video released from the royal family in just the last hour or so, a couple hours, shows King Charles reading some of his get well cards, giving a little chuckle at some points. They say he's gotten thousands of these from across the world after announcing he was diagnosed with cancer a few weeks ago. He thanks everybody for the messages, the palace says, saying such kind thoughts are the greatest comfort and encouragement. To Russia now, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine set to hit the 2-year mark. Some of the most intense fighting has been over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's biggest, and one that Russia took over toward the start of the war. Tonight, new concern over that site's safety, with some experts worried it could basically be a radioactive ticking time bomb. Our Richard Engel has more in tonight's original.
It's midnight on March 4th, 2022. CCTV cameras capture Russian troops as they attack Europe's biggest nuclear power plant near the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia.
This is a training center over there. They destroy it completely.
This is just a terrifying video, watching fire spread and an attack at an active nuclear facility.
Right, and the units with nuclear materials right here.
Petro Kotin, the CEO of Ukraine's state nuclear power company, says his staff at the plant immediately began to broadcast warnings.
This operator who announces Russians, you are trying to attack nuclear object, you bring threat to the whole world.
Back off, this is a danger to the world.
Yeah.
The warnings went unheeded. Russian troops occupied the plant and the territory around it. Ukrainian forces held on to the far bank of the Dnieper River, leaving the nuclear power station right on the front line. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which has inspectors at the plant, is sounding the alarm.
You're responsible for nuclear security all around the world.
Yes.
Is this the most dangerous nuclear facility on the planet right now?
It's the most dangerous situation that we have because it's in the middle of a war. It's my job not to panic, but at the same time, I have to tell the truth of what is happening. And the situation is extremely volatile.
Nuclear experts point to 3 main dangers. First, a military strike on the plant, either accidental or deliberate. Second, a power cut. The plant's 6 uranium reactors require electricity for cooling, but Ukrainian officials say 3 of the 4 power lines are damaged, and the 4th is faulty. There have already been 8 blackouts, the last in December, forcing the diesel generators to kick in, the plant's final backup.
When you have a blackout, the cooling function of the reactors is lost, and you could have a meltdown. By the way, this is what happened in a absolutely different configuration in Fukushima.
And finally, it's understaffed. When Russian forces captured the nuclear plant, they also took control of the employees. Ukrainian scientists recount being interrogated, tortured, and pressured to work for the new management. Serhiy Romanyuk was the deputy head of nuclear safety when he refused to cooperate. They put a scalding iron on my chest, choked me, and put a bag over my head so I couldn't breathe, he says. Romanyuk said his Russian captors wanted information about other staff at the plant. They started asking me about the staff at the station and the citizens who were pro-Ukrainian. They were trying to convince me to collaborate with them, he said. When Ukrainians, including Romanyuk, left, Russia brought in its own personnel to run the plant, but not enough. 11,000 people worked there before the war. Now, only around 4,000.
They do not have enough staff there. They do not have procedures. They do not know what to do.
Irina Kokot is responsible for radiation detection for the Ukrainian government. Her office predicts how, if there was a meltdown, a cloud of radioactive particles would spread across much of Ukraine and neighboring countries. The level of pollution will disappear incredibly slowly. It will be here not a year or 2, but 30, 40, or 100 years, she says.
This is Istanbul, right here,
Yes.
the city of Istanbul.
Here is Istanbul and
Contaminated the entire city of Istanbul on the Black Sea. It's a catastrophe.
The models change constantly, depending on shifts in the weather, but they all predict a cloud of radiation contaminating large parts of Ukraine and the region, making land uninhabitable.
And Hallie, there's yet another issue, another danger at this plant, and that is the nuclear fuel itself, the uranium. It is supposed to be replaced, according to the manufacturer, every 6 years. And the uranium has been in these reactors for 6 years now, meaning it has not been safety tested to stay there longer. And because of the war and because of the divisions at the plant, with Russians controlling it, occupying it, Ukrainians just across the river, there are currently no plans that we're aware of to change out that fuel. So it's another danger.
Our thanks to Richard Engel for that critical reporting here as tonight's original. Still ahead, in the backstory, pulling back the curtain on a pretty bizarre one, how a magician ended up in the center of an election year controversy and the way that our NBC News team was tipped off. You're not going to want to miss it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Spain, at least 9 people have been killed in a huge fire at 2 apartment buildings in Valencia. Officials are still trying to figure out the cause of it, but experts say that it might have spread so quickly because of the material these buildings were made out of. The government has declared 3 days of mourning. Out of China, several people hurt after this massive car pileup. Look at this, 100 cars, more than that, crashing into each other on an icy overpass. Parts of China have been getting a whole bunch of snow and freezing rain. The road has since reopened, and officials are investigating. And out of the UK, some new video released from the royal family in just the last hour or so, a couple hours, shows King Charles reading some of his get well cards, giving a little chuckle at some points. They say he's gotten thousands of these from across the world after announcing he was diagnosed with cancer a few weeks ago. He thanks everybody for the messages, the palace says, saying such kind thoughts are the greatest comfort and encouragement. To Russia now, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine set to hit the 2-year mark. Some of the most intense fighting has been over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's biggest, and one that Russia took over toward the start of the war. Tonight, new concern over that site's safety, with some experts worried it could basically be a radioactive ticking time bomb. Our Richard Engel has more in tonight's original.
It's midnight on March 4th, 2022. CCTV cameras capture Russian troops as they attack Europe's biggest nuclear power plant near the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia.
This is a training center over there. They destroy it completely.
This is just a terrifying video, watching fire spread and an attack at an active nuclear facility.
Right, and the units with nuclear materials right here.
Petro Kotin, the CEO of Ukraine's state nuclear power company, says his staff at the plant immediately began to broadcast warnings.
This operator who announces Russians, you are trying to attack nuclear object. You bring threat to the whole world.
Back off. This is a danger to the world.
Yeah.
The warnings went unheeded. Russian troops occupied the plant and the territory around it. Ukrainian forces held on to the far bank of the Dnieper River, leaving the nuclear power station right on the front line. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which has inspectors at the plant, is sounding the alarm.
You're responsible for nuclear security all around the world.
Yes.
Is this the most dangerous nuclear facility on the planet right now?
It's the most dangerous situation that we have because it's in the middle of a war. It's my job not to panic, but at the same time, I have to tell the truth of what is happening. And the situation is extremely volatile.
Nuclear experts point to 3 main dangers. First, a military strike on the plant, either accidental or deliberate. Second, a power cut. The plant's 6 uranium reactors require electricity for cooling, but Ukrainian officials say 3 of the 4 power lines are damaged, and the 4th is faulty. There have already been 8 blackouts, the last in December, forcing the diesel generators to kick in, the plant's final backup.
When you have a blackout, the cooling function of the reactors is lost, and you could have a meltdown. By the way, this is what happened in a absolutely different configuration in Fukushima.
And finally, it's understaffed. When Russian forces captured the nuclear plant, they also took control of the employees. Ukrainian scientists recount being interrogated, tortured, and pressured to work for the new management. Serhiy Romanyuk was the deputy head of nuclear safety when he refused to cooperate. They put a scalding iron on my chest, choked me, and put a bag over my head so I couldn't breathe, he says. Romanyuk said his Russian captors wanted information about other staff at the plant. They started asking me about the staff at the station and the citizens who were pro-Ukrainian. They were trying to convince me to collaborate with them, he said. When Ukrainians, including Romanyuk, left, Russia brought in its own personnel to run the plant, but not enough. 11,000 people worked there before the war. Now, only around 4,000.
They do not have enough staff there. They do not have procedures. They do not know what to do.
Irina Kokot is responsible for radiation detection for the Ukrainian government. Her office predicts how, if there was a meltdown, a cloud of radioactive particles would spread across much of Ukraine and neighboring countries. The level of pollution will disappear incredibly slowly. It will be here not a year or two, but 30, 40, or 100 years, she says.
This is Istanbul, right here.
Yes.
The city of Istanbul.
Here is Istanbul and
contaminated the entire city of Istanbul on the Black Sea. It's a catastrophe.
The models change constantly, depending on shifts in the weather, but they all predict a cloud of radiation contaminating large parts of Ukraine and the region, making land uninhabitable.
And Hallie, there's yet another issue, another danger at this plant, and that is the nuclear fuel itself, the uranium. It is supposed to be replaced, according to the manufacturer, every 6 years. And the uranium has been in these reactors for 6 years now, meaning it has not been safety tested to stay there longer. And because of the war and because of the divisions at the plant, with Russians controlling it, occupying it, Ukrainians just across the river, there are currently no plans that we're aware of to change out that fuel. So it's another danger.
Our thanks to Richard Engel for that critical reporting here as tonight's original. Still ahead, in the backstory, pulling back the curtain on a pretty bizarre one, how a magician ended up in the center of an election year controversy and the way that our NBC News team was tipped off. You're not going to want to miss it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.